How I become a butcher, it's been a family tradition. My parents owned a butcher shop back home in Australia. After school, I just went into the trade and learnt from my stepfather. I worked on Smithfield Meat Market as a catering butcher. I left there and went and worked for Dalesford Organic. From Dalesford Organic, I left them and went and worked for the Ginger Pig at Borough Market. From there, I opened the store for Jamie Oliver Barbacoa. I'm currently still doing 2 days a week with Whole Foods Market as a consultant, looking at opening new stores, looking after their cost files, and then working for myself as well. The ethos behind the butchery is communicating with customers. My focus is on rare breed meats, native breeds, whole carcass butchery. I'm here to sell everything. I don't want just steaks to put in my counter. I want to be able to give customers a variety of different cuts of meat at different costs. There's a lot of cheeky butcher's cuts that are usually just put through mince and not really seamed out and looked at properly as a grilling steak or a frying steak or anything like that. And I kind of look at them a little bit differently. It's a whole utilisation of the carcass instead of just making burgers out of it. The teres major is the very small little muscle that sits deep right next to the scapular bone in the shoulder. I mean, I've picked it up from a butcher called Fleischer's in America. And it usually does just get minced. I mean, most butchers would cut through it without even knowing that that muscle existed. What I'm going to do now is remove all the meat off the scapular bone, which is your shoulder blade, just to get this one little muscle out. So I'm just working from one side, getting hard down on the bone. And it's just got this thin membrane between the meat and the bone itself, and it'll start lifting off. I've just come underneath the seam. You end up getting a big, what looks like a mess of meat here. You need to get down to the nitty gritty of it and sort of find that little seam that runs between the two muscles, just to pull it out. You just need to take all the silver skin off it. It's a little bit chewy if you're not going to cook it for a long, slow cook. Then you have this tiny little muscle that's great for grilling and frying, eating quite rare. I mean, that's, for me, is nearly a perfect steak just for myself. It's only going to weigh about 200 grams. I keep finding these little cuts. Social media is a good thing. Having a look at food trends and how they're evolving. I look at the States a lot. There is a lot of good butchers over there. I mean, there's Michelin-star chefs that have gone back to butchery, so I think there's a whole trend of nose-to-tail butchery coming back. I've always known about the bolar cut. It's something that I've always seen and thought it's underutilised. It never gets the recognition that it should do. I'm just getting to expose the bolar. It's a muscle, a really strong, overworked muscle that wraps between the elbow and around over the shoulder blade. To get to it, I need to remove the forequarter shin. I've got my scapular bone running down this end and the bolar bone running through here. So just to get in here, I've got to just start digging around to get nice and close to that bone. I'm always pressing my knife really nice and hard against the bone to make it nice and clean. That's all your profit. If you take more meat off the bone, the more profit you make. And what you're left with is, at the end, is this little ball of muscle that just sits on the inside. So we just need to seam that out. And what you're left with is this very solid muscle that's great for long, slow cooking. But I mean, to get the real idea of what it's all about is when you cut it open and fold it out like that, you've got all these little wiggly lines, which is connective tissue in there, which at a low, slow cooking just breaks down into gelatin. So it just gets really sticky and really soft and really nice. Key trends that I have seen in the UK over the last 5 years is definitely people going back to their butcher. More butchers are opening on the high streets again, which is very, very encouraging as a butcher that's just starting up their own business. I mean, people are more concerned about the provenance of their meat. If they're going to pay that little bit extra, they want to know everything about it. When you're looking at a whole rump to slice, you will see this sort of taily piece that's there, and it doesn't quite fit. It is a different muscle structure, so I think it needs treating a little bit differently. So I take it and I seam it off, and then I've got this lovely piece that's really good to give a really good hard hit on a griddle pan, just finish in the oven at a low temperature just to make it nice and pink. The benefit of it is it's got the taste of a rump steak, but it usually generally has a lot more marbling into it. So it develops a different flavour, something that lasts on your tongue a little bit better. So what you've got here is your massive rump. It's still connected to the bone. So you can see where it was joined into the hip socket. You just need to get in underneath it, take that bone out as cleanly as possible, until we're left with this massive big rump steak now. I mean, there's a fair bit of trimming here that we need to do to take it back to what we're looking for. So you can see we've got this tail piece here. It doesn't really look like it belongs. So you just sort of need to find the seam between it and the major, what they call the D-cut rump. You can sell it either two ways. You can just sell it like that, and you can see all the grains and marbling running in it with a big bit of fat over it. But if you're a bit more health conscious, taking this fat off is quite easily done. Leaves you with a nice leaner cut. That's your tri-tip.